war of sorts against Sony and Microsoft. Each is trying to claim the #1 spot in market share in gaming, and to do that, they're developing consoles that are increasingly complex with lots of different features. Meanwhile, there's a distant third in market share, a company that's taking a different approach to gaming, and they're thinking about the nature of how games are played, and they developed the Wii system that gets people up out of their seats, interacting with one another and the screen. And this choice by Nintendo actually is a boon for them financially. They only have a distant third in market share, but with each unit they sell, they're making a larger profit because they haven't sunk as much as Sony and Microsoft in research and development. And Nintendo's story, I think, is something that debunks the myth that in our culture you have to be first place to be successful. And in fact, they had much more profit than their other two competitors, even though they were a smaller company, because they had a different way of approaching their goal. And what I want to talk to you about today is a way that I think in life you find success not through some false hierarchy, but through making the best of the position that you're given. I know in my own teaching career, for whatever reason, I've never been the first choice when hired for a job. I've found out later that I've been a distant third choice in every time I've gotten a job, including here at Beaver. And instead of dwelling on why they didn't want me, I've thought about what I can do once I get that job. I think telling you the story about Beaver and how I came here is maybe the best way to explain this metaphor. I thought Beaver would be the perfect place for me, and I desperately wanted a job here. I was so excited about getting a job here that I sent in my cover letter without letting anybody else look at it. And you can see it on the screen behind you. It has a glaring error. Every time I read it, I read, "I am writing to you." There's no "am" in that sentence. After sending this foolish letter, I thought, there's no way Beaver's going to be interested in hiring me. Luckily for me, they never read that letter. In fact, I went to a huge job fair here in Boston, and these things are meat markets. Hundreds of schools, hundreds of educators trying to get a job in one place. And Beaver's table was crowded the entire day. They never wanted to interview me, but I thought, I'll go and introduce myself. It was so crowded, though, that I literally would have had to climb over someone to introduce myself to the people that were standing in the middle. I was so desperate by the end of the day that I thought, I'm going to do it anyway. So I climbed over some people getting interviews, went by Mr. McDonald, didn't know him then, and I encountered this man. His name's Rob Connor. He's the former assistant head of school. Rob and I had instant kismet. We connected instantly over technology. He started saying things like, "What do you think of cloud computing?" And I threw back, "Hey, have you heard about Quizlet? Let me show you what I've been doing with it just this week in class." And the two of us shared back and forth what I was doing with technology, what Beaver was all about, and this was right when they were starting the laptop program. He thought that I'd be a perfect fit, started to introduce me to a lot of other people. I interviewed with different teachers, with the head of the English department. I didn't get a chance to interview with Mr. Hutton, but it took a lot of time. I spent 2 days interviewing. I thought, I've got the job. And then 2 months passed, and I got no word from them. And it turned out that they were offering the job to other people who didn't accept. Eventually, though, after 2 months, Hutton gives me a call and says, "We want you to come to Beaver." And it was an instant home for me. After a few months, I felt like this was the place that would help me develop as a teacher and what I would do well. And I think that if I would have dwelled on being in third place and not being the first choice, I wouldn't have been as successful. This business about being the third hire has happened to me at every school I've ever had a job. At my last school, at Frankfurt International School, the position had been offered to 2 people before it was offered to me. But I ended up getting the job, and it was a great place for me. It happened for me too at my very first job. The principal said and called me. There was 2 English positions that I was interviewing for. He offered them to 2 other people, and he said, "But I liked your interview, and if something opens up, I'm coming after you and offering you a job." And luckily over the summer, something did open up. And I think that I've found success then in all 3 schools that I've been at for a few reasons. First, I've never been the type of teacher that says it's about me in the classroom. It's really about the students, and I've tried to be student-centered wherever I go and listen to them for insight and for inspiration. I'm also somebody who's willing to take risks, and I don't take myself too seriously. I'm somebody that's going to dress up like Frankenstein in school or a zombie like I did yesterday, and I think that people respond to that, and that's been important to my success in the classroom. And finally, I think I try to make something that's ordinary extraordinary, and even if it's reading a book, creating a website, whatever it might be, I try to think about how can we do something differently. So things like the Slavery Project and those kind of things come out of my classrooms because I'm intentionally trying to make something beautiful where some people see something that's just ordinary. So in the end, I don't think it's about who you know or what you know. I think it's about what you do that leads to your success, and it's not about worrying what position you suddenly fall into, because it's what you do once you find that spot that matters. Thanks.